Good day everyone, I am Desire Emrivico and we're going to tackle about the different prominent Filipinos and their significant contribution that makes them prominent or heroes of the country. But before that, what is prominent Filipino? A prominent Filipino is said to be the heroines who change Philippine history or the Filipino who have exemplary works or has the biggest contribution in the society. So the first prominent Filipino is Jose Rizal. Jose Rizal or Jose Protasio Rizal Mercado y Alonso Realonda was a Filipino physician, poet, and writer who inspired the Philippine nationalist movement. He was born on June 19, 1861 in Calamba, Philippines and died on December 30, 1896 in Manila. Rizal was born to a wealthy landowner and received his education in Manila at the University of Madrid. He was a skilled medical student who dedicated himself to reforming Spanish authority in the Philippines, though he never called for independence. Between 1882 and 1892, he lived in Europe and wrote the majority of his works. Loli Me Tangere, or The Social Cancer, Rizal's first novel, was released in 1887 and was exposed of the evils of Spanish authority in the Philippines. His status as the foremost speaker of the Philippine Reform movement was cemented by a sequel, El Filibusterismo, or the Reign of Greed. He rose to become the leader of the propaganda movement, publishing numerous pieces to its Barcelona-based journal, La Solidaridad. Rizal's aims included the integration of the Philippines as a province of Spain, representation in the Cortes, the replacement of Spanish friars with Filipino priests, freedom of assembly and expression, and equality of Filipinos and Spaniards before the law. In 1892, Rizal returned to the Philippines. He created the Liga Filipina, a peaceful reform movement in Manila, and was banished to the Pitan in northwest Mindanao. The Katipunan, a secret Filipino nationalist organization, rose against Spain in 1896. Although he had no ties to that organization and had played no role in the uprising, the soldiers apprehended Rizal and tried him for sedition. He was found guilty and publicly executed in Manila by a firing squad. Jose Rizal's death persuaded Filipinos that independence from Spain was the only option. While imprisoned in Fort Santiago on the eve of his execution, Rizal wrote the poem Ultimo Adios, or Last Farewell. So the second prominent Filipino was Andres Bonifacio. Andres Bonifacio was the creator and head of the nationalist Katipunan organization who led the revolution against the Spanish in August 1896. Bonifacio had minimal formal education and worked as a messenger and warehouse keeper before becoming involved in revolutionary activity. Nonetheless, he was a voracious reader. Unlike Jose Rizal, who fought for reforming Spanish authority in the Philippines, Bonifacio advocated for total independence. He formed the Katipunan in Manila in 1892 based on the Masonic Order's organization and ceremony. Bonifacio led the long-planned insurgency in Luzon in August 1896, but his men were beaten by Spanish troops, forcing him to flee to Montalban in the north, where Emilio Aguinaldo, one of his lieutenants, continued the fight. As the Spanish crushed the insurrection, it became evident that Bonifacio was an incompetent military leader. A conference at Tijeros in March 1897 named Aguinaldo, not Bonifacio, as the president of a new Philippine Republic. Bonifacio attempted to form his own rebuilt government after refusing to accept the decision. The next one is Emilio Aguinaldo. Emilio Aguinaldo was a Filipino leader and politician who battled for the Philippines' independence, first from Spain and then from the United States. Aguinaldo's parents were Chinese and Tagalog. He was the local head of the Katipunan, a revolutionary movement that battled the Spanish ferociously, and was mayor of Cavite Region in August 1896. In December 1897, he and the Spanish Governor-General signed the Biography Pact. Aguinaldo promised to leave the Philippines and live in exile for the rest of his life in exchange for a large cash payoff from Spain and the promise of liberal reforms. While in exile, however, he arranged to return to the Philippines to assist the Americans in their war with Spain. On May 19, 1898, Aguinaldo returned to the Philippines and declared a fresh rebellion against Spain. On June 12, 1898, the Filipinos declared independence from Spain and established a provisional republic with Aguinaldo as president. In September, a revolutionary assembly assembled and recognized Filipino independence. However, Spain gave the Philippines, along with Puerto Rico and Guam, to the United States. Tensions between Americans and Filipinos quickly escalated. The Malolos Constitution, which declared the Philippines a republic and was accepted by both the legislature and Aguinaldo, was proclaimed on January 23, 1899. Aguinaldo was elected president after serving as president of interim government. The expected conflict between Americans and Filipinos erupted on February 4 in Manila. The Filipinos, who had battled valiantly, had been defeated on all fronts from the morning of February 5. Post-independence, President Elpidio Quirino named Aguinaldo to the Council of State. Emilio Aguinaldo's contributions in his final years included the promotion of the Philippine nationalism and democracy and the development of relations between the Philippines and the United States. And the next prominent Filipino was Apolinario Mabini. Apolinario Mabini was a Filipino thinker and speaker of the Philippine Revolution who prepared the Constitution for the short-lived Republic of 1898 to 99. Mabini was born into a peasant family and attended San Juan de Letran College in Manila before graduating from the University of Santo Tomas with a law degree in 1894. He joined the armies of Patriot General Emilio Aguinaldo in an insurgency planned by nationalists in August 1896 and quickly became his right-hand man. When the Spanish-American War broke out in 1898, Mabini advocated for cooperation with the U.S. as a means of gaining independence from Spain. When the U.S. proclaimed its intention to occupy the Philippines, Mabini joined Aguinaldo in a renewed fight for independence. He was kidnapped by U.S. troops in December 1899 and deported to Guam after refusing to swear allegiance to the U.S. He was only allowed to return home a few months before his death. So the next prominent Filipino is Marcelo H. Del Pilar. Marcelo H. Del Pilar is a writer, lawyer, and journalist who was born to a lawyer's family. Marcelo was the mayor of Copan, Bulacan during the Spanish administration. After finishing law, he petitioned the Spaniards to create schools for Filipinos throughout the country, certain that universal education would benefit his compatriots. Believing him to be an enemy of the state, the Spanish banished him from the Philippines. He traveled to Barcelona, where he met La Solidaridad founder Graciano Lopez. Marcelo succeeded Jaina as editor, wrote about his people's suffering, and continued his reform work. When publication of the paper ceased due to lack of funds, he began to lose hope in peaceful reform and instead advocated revolution. He intended to return to the Philippines, but died of tuberculosis before he could make the journey. The next prominent Filipino is Sultan Dipatuan Kudarat. Sultan Kudarat, also known as Muhammad Kudarat, was well known in Mindanao for his bravery and leadership. Between 1619 and 1671, the Muslim Filipinos of Mindanao were not yet under Spanish rule. Sultan Kudarat was responsible for maintaining unity in Mindanao as the Filipino Muslims struggled against the invaders. Sultan Kudarat's leadership inspired his people to fight the Spaniards, eventually beating them back. Kudarat died of old age in 1671, never surrendering to the Spanish authorities. The Filipino government named parts of Mindanao after him in recognition of his contributions, including the province of Sultan Kudarat. The next prominent Filipino is Juan Luna. Juan Luna, or Juan Luna de San Pedro y Novicio Anchieta, was a Filipino painter, sculptor, and late 19th century political activist who participated in the Philippine Revolution. He was one of the first well-known Filipino artists. He earned a gold medal in the 1884 Madrid Exposition of Fine Arts, along with the silver medal of fellow Filipino painter Felix Visercion Hidalgo. Luna was known for painting literary and historical settings in the style of European academies of the period, some of which included political commentary. His allegorical compositions often contained theatrical poses inspired by scenes from the classics. Famous Juan Luna paintings include Spolarium, The Parisian Life, and Tampuhan. The next prominent Filipino is Melchora Aquino. Melchora Aquino, popularly known as Tandang Sora, was known as the mother of the revolution. Her nickname comes from the Tagalog word for old, as she was 84 years old when the revolution started. She risked her life to tend to address Bonifacio and other Katipuneras in 1896, providing them with food and nursing the wounded. Her bravery became evident after she was captured by Spanish officials, who subjected her to torture and interrogation in the hopes of extracting information about the Katipunan hideout. She refused to submit and was exiled to Guam on the orders of Governor General Ramon Blanco. So the last prominent Filipino is Gabriela Silang. Gabriela Silang was a fierce Ilocano warrior who, after her husband's killing in 1763, took over as commander of rebel troops. She recruited military forces, including native ethnics, to continue the war against Spain in Ilocos, launching guerrilla raids against Spanish garrisons. In her final engagements at the liberation of Vigan, She commanded nearly 2,000 troops against an army of over 6,000 Spanish soldiers. Silang lost the battle, so she and her surviving 80 troops retreated to uncharted territory in Abra, where they were eventually caught, before publicly hanging the general herself in September 1763. The Spanish forced her to witness the public killings of her soldiers. Despite her defeat, Gabriela Silang is remembered for her incredible bravery in fighting for the freedom of Ilocos. So they are the prominent Filipinos who had the biggest contribution in our country.